Well, more than 160 million Americans are bracing themselves for Winter Storm Fern, with heavy snow and freezing rain forecast to pummel the southern and eastern US states. Authorities are preparing for emergency conditions with power outages and major travel disruption expected.
You're standing in a quiet Frisco neighborhood, or maybe a frozen field near Bonham, and the air is so cold it physically hurts to breathe. But the pain in your chest isn't from the temperature. It's the realization that the laughter you heard 10 seconds ago has vanished. Why did the light go out? Not the power. We'll get to the grid in a moment, but the light in the eyes of 11 families tonight. You see the headlines, Texas survives Fern. You see the charts from ERCOT showing a stable green line, a success story compared to the nightmare of 2021. But if the system worked, why are there small shoes sitting by front doors tonight that will never be stepped into again? There is a specific kind of dread that settles in when you realize that safety is an illusion sold to us by press releases. We were told the grid was ready. We were told the lessons were learned. And yet, beneath the surface of a stable Texas energy market, something went horribly, fundamentally wrong. It wasn't just the ice. It was a series of split-second decisions and systemic failures that turned a winter wonderland into a graveyard. You think you know why these kids didn't come home? You think it's just an accident? You're only seeing the frost on the window, a distraction that only persists when people stop tracing what's really forming behind the glass by staying subscribed. We need to look at what's behind the glass. Close your eyes and try to hear it. Not the wind, not the sirens, but the sound of a father's boots crunching through 3 inches of frozen topsoil toward a pond that should have been a picturesque winter scene. It's a sound that shouldn't exist in Texas. We aren't built for this. Our soil isn't meant to be stone, and our water isn't meant to be glass. But there he is, screaming names into a void that only echoes back the cracking of timber. This isn't a ghost story. This happened days ago. While the talking heads on the news were busy patting themselves on the back because your heater stayed on, 3 brothers were fighting for their lives beneath a sheet of ice that looked solid enough to walk on. Why weren't they warned? Why did they think it was safe? You want to blame the parents. That's the easy way out, isn't it? It makes you feel better. It makes you feel like it couldn't happen to you. But the truth is much more jagged and uncomfortable. We have been conditioned to look at the wrong things. We spent 4 years obsessed with the grid. We turned a utility provider into a boogeyman. And while we were staring at the power lines, we forgot to look at the ground beneath our feet. Think about the girls in Frisco. 16 years old. The age of driving permits and first dances. They weren't being reckless. They were being kids in a state that finally gave them snow. They were being pulled on a sled, a universal symbol of childhood joy. Then, in a heartbeat, the physics of ice took over. No friction, no control, just the sickening thud of wood against a tree. Why does a prepared state feel like a death trap the moment the temperature drops below 30? We are told that Winter Storm Fern was a manageable event. That's the official term, manageable. Tell that to the families in East Texas who sat in the pitch black for 6 days, watching the breath mist in front of their faces, listening to the trees in their backyard explode like heavy artillery. Have you ever heard a frozen oak branch snap? It sounds like a gunshot. And in the dark, when the walls of your house are bleeding heat and your phone has been dead for 48 hours, every snap sounds like the ceiling coming down. The officials say the grid held up. They use that phrase like a shield. The grid held up. But what does that actually mean when 11 people are dead? It means the machines worked, but the humanity failed. It means we prioritize the flow of electrons over the flow of accurate, life-saving information. We were so focused on not repeating 2021 that we walked right into a different kind of slaughter. There's a psychological term for this: normalcy bias. We see the lights on and we assume we are safe. We assume the roads are treated. We assume the ice is thick enough. We assume the authorities have a handle on the chaos. But look closer at the map. Look at the places where the lights flickered and died. It wasn't the big cities. It wasn't the high-rises in Dallas or the tech hubs in Austin. It was the rural pockets, the places where the infrastructure is held together by spit and prayers. In East Texas, the ice didn't just fall. It anchored itself. It grew. It became a weight so heavy that the very trees that provide shade in the summer became executioners in the winter. Thousands of people were trapped in their homes, not because the power plant failed, but because the delivery system was never upgraded. You're starting to wonder, aren't you? If the power was there, why did people die of exposure? If the grid was stable, why were the roads untreated in the exact spots where the accidents happened? There is a gap between the success the government is claiming and the reality of the body bags being zipped up in the morgue. Somewhere in that gap lies a secret they don't want to discuss. It's not about a lack of fuel or a frozen turbine this time. It's something much more deliberate. Imagine being one of those families. You're told the worst is over. You're told the state is ready. You trust the voice on the radio. And then you watch your world turn into a landscape of jagged glass and silence. You feel that tightening in your throat? That's the realization that you are on your own. No matter how many billions of dollars are poured into weatherization, when the ice comes, the state isn't coming to save you. They are just going to make sure the lights stay on so you can watch the tragedy unfold in high definition. The question isn't just what happened. The question is, who decided that 11 lives was an acceptable price for a stable headline? And what is it about the way Texas handles these storms that practically guarantees it will happen again? You think you're ready for the answer? You think it's just about weather? It's not. It's about a choice that was made months ago, in a room far away from the ice, that sealed the fate of those children before the first snowflake even fell. A consequence that only stays invisible when people stop following how decisions like this are executed by staying subscribed. The answer isn't buried in a technical manual or a deep freeze failure. It's buried in the word localized. When the state officials stood behind their podiums and cheered for the grid's stability, they were looking at a macro map. They saw a state that was technically on. But if you zoom in, past the bright lights of the Capitol, you find the forgotten fractures. The state didn't fail to produce power. It failed to protect the path that power takes to reach you. In East Texas, the success of the grid meant nothing because the distribution lines, the literal veins of our energy system, were left vulnerable to the same trees and ice that have been a known threat for decades. The tragedy of those 11 lives wasn't an act of God. It was an act of omission. We prioritized the big picture to save face politically, while ignoring the granular reality of emergency response and local infrastructure. The warning systems for the ice on those ponds? Non-existent. The road treatments in the suburbs of Frisco? Delayed. The success they are selling you is a statistical trick. They kept the lights on in the empty office buildings of Dallas, while children were sliding into the path of destiny on untreated roads. We were told we were ready, because the turbines didn't freeze. But readiness isn't just about a generator humming in a field 500 miles away. Readiness is the communication that keeps a father from letting his sons walk onto a death trap. It's the infrastructure that doesn't snap under the weight of a single night's frost. We traded human safety for a PR win, and 11 families paid the invoice in blood. The chilling truth is that Fern wasn't a freak accident. It was a dress rehearsal for a future where the system is healthy, but the people are not. We have built a world where the machines are winterized, but the communities are left out in the cold. But there's a final, more unsettling layer to this: the silence of the data. While the state celebrates the green lights on the dashboard, they aren't talking about the frequency of the micro fails. In the hours leading up to the Frisco tragedy, local weather sensors were flagging surface temperatures that turned moisture into an invisible, frictionless oil. That data existed. It was moving through the wires. But the bridge between that data and the families on the ground was intentionally left broken. Why? Because a statewide emergency declaration triggers massive costs, political scrutiny, and a blow to the Texas's open narrative. So, they kept the alert levels at a whisper. They let you believe it was just a pretty snow day to avoid the paperwork of a catastrophe. They bet on your luck to protect their reputation. 11 times, that bet failed. 11 times, the house won, and the families lost. If you're tired of the headlines that only tell you half the story, while the truth stays frozen beneath the surface, you aren't alone. We're digging into the layers they want you to ignore, every single week. Hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell, because the next time the sky turns gray, you deserve to know exactly what's coming for you.